K-State Culturally is virtual programming centered on celebrating, uplifting, and educating the Wildcat community through the lens of communities of color connected or affiliated with Kansas State University.
Hello, my name is Davey Freeman. I'm an alumni from K-State, graduated in 2015. Graduated in 2019 with a degree in criminology. Ran track at K-State. I'm interviewing Chris. Chris, like, introduce yourself.
Yeah, for sure, man. So Chris Merriweather, graduated from Kansas State in the year 2010. I played basketball, started as a walk-on, eventually earned a scholarship, played for Bob Huggins for 1 year, and then played for Frank Martin for 3 years. Ended by going to the Elite Eight with a great team and some great teammates. Majored in finance and ended up going to work for the oil and gas company, ConocoPhillips, Phillips 66. Did that for about 6 years in corporate finance, domestically, internationally, and then traveled to start my MBA at Wharton. Did that for 2 years, and then now I'm in Atlanta, now working in real estate private equity.
Okay, all right. To start off, just to break the ice a little bit, tell me a good story.
Yeah, no doubt.
That you can tell me from K-State. If you can go back to that time, a good story just to break the ice.
A good story. Oh my gosh. The first story I think about is when I first arrived at Kansas State. I wasn't, Devie, you might have been a star recruit, man. I wasn't. So I was the guy that, was I was an average guy on a really good high school basketball team, and I didn't sign a letter of intent, and I did not ever take an official visit to Kansas State. So believe it or not, my first time at Kansas State was my first time in the state of Kansas when I was at Kansas State arriving. And I remember driving in the Suburban loaded up with my family. And I remember waking up in the Flint Hills. And I remember everywhere I looked in every direction, it was nothing but land and cows and all that stuff. And I just remember I remember saying to myself, what the heck did I sign myself up for being up here with the land and the cows? I had never even stepped foot in a state that touched Kansas, let alone Kansas. I'd never even been to a state that touched Kansas. So that was my first kind of interaction to K-State outside of NCAA football, which I used to play with Michael Bishop and L. Roberson because they were the fastest quarterbacks in the game. That was my true introduction to K-State too. So that's some of my funny stories.
Okay. All right. I like that. So
yeah,
what made you actually choose K-State? Like you said, you didn't get a scholarship. You walked on. So what made you choose K-State as a college to not only further your education but pursue and continue athletics? What made you want to walk on? Tell me about that.
Yeah, for sure, Dede. I played for a really good high school basketball team. We were one of the teams that was USA Today Super 25 and ranked and all that stuff. But I was an average player on a really, really good team. And I did some things very well, but bottom line is when it came down to it, I ended up breaking my wrist my senior year of high school. And when I had, my opportunity set kind of dwindled a little bit, Bob Huggins had actually just got hired at Kansas State. And he had watched me play for a couple years and was really recruiting a guy by the name of Jason Bennett, who was a 7'3" guy. And they ended up recruiting Jason up. And long story short, the coach said, "Hey, if Chris can kind of come up here and, if he can kind of come up here and, be a practice player if he wants to. And if he, works really hard, he might be able to see some game time. He works a little hard, gets a little lucky, might be able to start a game or two by the time he's a senior. And if he gets even luckier, he might be able to earn a scholarship." So by my sophomore year, I started a game or two. And by junior year, I was very fortunate enough to be right place, right time. And by the grace of God and great people around me, I had earned a scholarship. So, it's just really a great opportunity. And when I met the coaches and I sat down with Bob Huggins and Frank Martin, it was them that kind of convinced me. I actually didn't know much about K-State outside of the former college quarterbacks in NCAA football that I used to play with. Before that. But then after I started getting really interested, I started looking up information about the business school because I wanted to major in business. And then from there, it was just kind of learning more and figuring out that, you know what, the values that this school stands for is what they kind of talk through and talk about. You know, it's kind of stuff that I can stand for.
Okay, we kind of had the same story a little bit in that. And
Yeah, what about you, man? What about you? How did you end up at K-State, man? You class of 19, man. I'm old news out here, man.
So it's kind of ran track at Kent High School. A good track team, won state. Individually, I had a couple state medals, so I can say I was top dog in state in track. I ended up having an assistant coach for K-State was from Mississippi.
And what did you run? What did you run?
I ran the 100, 200, and 400 and relays and all relays. So my coach from K-State, Coach Johnson, actually was from Mississippi and came back to recruit, came to my school actually, and that was a big deal. I was in class one day and I get a call from the office, can we have Davey Freeman to come down to the gym? I come back to the gym and my high school coach and future college coaches sitting at the table, surrounded with all the students in the gym, and for some reason my coach won't let anybody on the floor, so it's just me and both of the coaches sitting there having to talk or whatever. Leave, and I was the talk of the school after that. I got to K-State, did an official visit. I loved it. I loved the atmosphere. Not only was I around people that I felt safe and comfortable with, it felt like home, the family atmosphere. So I got there in freshman year, had an awesome year, and it continued into my senior year, and the rest was history. I mean,
that's awesome, bro. That's a great story. I feel like in some ways that's storybook. I'll tell you, when I first got there, I thought the people were super dope and I thought the people were super cool. I actually didn't like K-State when I first started. I didn't like it. It was I think people that know me now and know, the type of career that I had and the type of involvement that I had would be actually really surprised to know that I actually didn't like K-State initially. And because, initially it was a big thing. I was, my brother, he had went to school in Boston. Like I was coming from Florida and I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's nothing but land around me. What is there to do? And It wasn't until probably late into my sophomore year, early into my junior year, that I truly started appreciating the nuance of being in a place like Manhattan, the beauty of being in Manhattan, the Little Apple. And, it really grew on me. And, at first I was like, hey, I'm gonna be here for 4 years and, kind of skedaddle. But I'll tell you, getting to know the people and really getting to know the community, and even outside of the Kansas State community, getting to know the Fort Riley community, getting to know, the folks that they actually live there and work there and all that, it was like, what, I can see why this place is so special. But it took me a minute though, man. I wasn't sold right away. I was there to play basketball and get a business degree.
So, kind of the piggyback off the question I asked earlier, and kind of the answer you gave.
Yeah, for sure.
Something about like the relationships with the community and the people. How did you build that relationship, and how did you network and meet different people in the community? Not only athletics, but academics, on campus, off campus, and just and get familiar with the space and actually get comfortable when you actually started to like Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah, for sure. Devie, I'll tell you, a lot of it was anchored on basketball and it was anchored on sports. And that was kind of, if you know how it is being an athlete, like your sport, that's, you're a student athlete, but sometimes you feel like you're an athlete student. And, I was very focused on, doing well in my sport, and I was focused on, I was majoring in finance. So, my courses were pretty hard. I was just really focused on making sure that I understood what I need to do, how I could be successful, etc. But then just, I got one of my mentors, his name is Rand Burney. He's actually a K-State alum, and a phenomenal human being and a really good friend right now. And one thing that he used to always talk about, Chris, do really well with what you're doing and opportunities will present themselves. And I don't just think about that as it relates to business opportunities or opportunities where you can grow. I think about that also in terms of opportunities where you can be a gift to somebody, an opportunity where you can be a blessing to somebody. Just do the work that you need to do in the areas in which you're in at that particular time. And I think even though that was not the motive, that was not the MO from the beginning, I think it was just, going to work every single day, punching, and by going to work, meaning going to the weight room, going to the gym, just trying to be the best basketball player I can be, going to class. You got Dr. Higgins, you got Dr. Graham in the finance school, and trying to do everything I can in there, and talking to the AD, talking what eventually was John Curry, and having conversations with them, but just trying to do everything I could in the spaces I was in. And then it wasn't like I sought necessarily out some of these opportunities. Some of these opportunities came from people seeing me in spaces and raising my hand to volunteer, to speak on a business council panel when they're asking about what's the future of social media and business. And I was the crazy kid that said, nobody's going to use Facebook and LinkedIn and all that stuff. Nobody's going to use that to recruit. And it's good they didn't listen to me.
Yeah, the things have changed a lot. It seems like social media kind of runs the world a little bit, but
yeah, a little bit.
Let's see. I like the stuff. I like where you're going. I'm getting what you're saying. I want to go a little bit deeper, just a tad bit deeper.
Yeah, come with it, man. I want
to pull the blanket back and go a little bit deeper. So
pull the blanket back, man. That's what I like. We'll roll up our sleeves. I'll take it.
So teammate wise or other athletes, what was the thing to do back then? What was going on, or who was doing what was going on? I'm trying to put myself in that space in that time and see what was going on.
Space.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
man.
wonder what was going on there.
Oh man. Well, Rick Ross had just dropped the album where he had the Every Day I'm Hustling song, but you may not know about that.
I remember that. I'm not that young. I remember that time.
Jay-Z came out with Kingdom Come.
Okay.
I think that was during that maybe freshman and sophomore year. So, but anyway, that'll put you, in the mindset music wise.
I was trying to physically see how,
you got to see it, man. Yeah. We weren't wearing bell bottoms, man. Like, I don't know what listen, I got one gray right here now. Don't listen. I got one gray right here, but no. On a serious note, man. I mean, we were probably similar to you guys, Devie, man. Just trying to, have fun at the same time. Get the grades that we need to get and play ball, and at the same time we were trying to win a championship. So we were really, really focused on that. And I think honestly that probably speaks to, in some ways, you come to a school like Kansas State and you're super, super focused. Like it wasn't until Devie, you have no idea what this is like, but there wasn't always direct routes into Manhattan from some of these places, right? Like people always had to fly to Kansas City, and then you have to drive 2 hours past some school we won't name. And that was a different time. And so now, things are different, but it was very much so. I think myself and my teammates, and I think maybe, other athletes I've talked to kind of shared this idea that, we are at K-State and we're on a mission, and we're on a mission to win a championship. We're on a mission to get a degree. We're on a mission to do what we need to do, which sometimes that takes away from the perceived level of involvement an athlete can have in the community, and the perceived level of involvement an athlete can have outside of their sport, because your coaches, and the coaches do a really good job. I know, Bruce Weber, I know he does a good job with this, and I know Frank used to, and even Bob Huggins used to, and definitely to Bill Snyder, who's a legend, Hall of Famer. He would always have the basketball guys doing things, or doing the football guys doing things, whether it's Jill Shields and the Student Athlete Advisory Council, SAC, and putting on the Cats for Cans things with volunteering, community oriented things, or whether or not it's being representatives for your team and working on leadership things. There were things to do within the sport, but there were also things to do outside of the sport, which I ended up touching a lot of things that were adjacent to the sport, and being on the Student Athlete Advisory Council and serving as president of that. But then also when the athletic director search committee came around, and we needed to find an athletic director, I was so very fortunate that Amy Button Renz, under her leadership, and Lynn as well, under her leadership as well, was able to take part in the athletic director search committee, which was one of the best experiences that I've ever had. And I don't think I would have had that if it wasn't for sports. But at the same time, if it wasn't for my involvement outside of campus, they may not have looked to me in that type of capacity. But one thing I want to ask you, Devie, is, I had involvement through sport and outside of sport. A lot of things were adjacent to it. Knowing a little bit about your story, seems like you've been able to, when you were on campus, you were able to kind of take part in your sport, maybe take part in leadership for your sport, but then also branch out to something that's just way outside of what normal athletes would do, is, being a leader, being a visionary leader in other organizations, and making sure that you're present in that the voice is heard. So maybe I'm curious about that, because I honestly can't name one person from my class that had that type of involvement.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked the sport aspects. I love my teammates and the other coaches and other teams, but it got to a point where I feel like I was secluded from the rest of the school, rest of campus. So I started to slowly reach out to not only students of color, but just everybody. I went to BSU meetings and hung out on campus in the Multicultural Center.
And what's BSU for some folks? Some folks may not know what BSU is. What's BSU?
Black Student Union. So we had a Black Student Union, and my freshman year, as I came on to the orientation, I heard about it. They talked to me, talked to my parents, and I was eager to, hang out, to find friends and find people that think alike, act alike, just find things to do in a new space where I was at. So what I did was I started slowly reaching out. I gave myself a goal to actually meet at least one person a day on campus. If it's just a speak, or hey, having a conversation in class or anything. So daily, I would try to reach out and meet new people from my classrooms, from professors. So I built that relationship. And as I started building relationships, I started to introduce other people that I was meeting with one another. And that's how I kind of got to a point where it was when I would go on campus and I had, friends or associates or just people to hang out and talk to make me feel comfortable and at home. It was hard because I would always get asked this question, being an athlete, what the rest of the athletes said, why only you come? And it was hard for me to kind of explain. And I tried my best to not take sides. And I even went to other athletes and told them, man, y'all come hang out with me. Y'all come do this. Let's do this. Y'all come here. And I'm busy. I got this. And we was busy. Yes, we had practice and tutoring and everything like that. But I always made it my job to take out some time out the day to meet different people. I never wanted to make myself feel like I was bigger or better because I was on scholarship, because I was an athlete. I wanted them to feel equal and make them feel like we're all here for the same reason, to get an education and to better ourselves and, make K-State look great. So
no doubt. Well, what do you feel? What do you feel like you learned? You talk about other athletes not necessarily taking that same path, and you kind of answer for everybody, like, hey, why are the other athletes not there or not present? But what do you feel like you learned, or maybe a takeaway or two that you learned from your experiences branching out? Because not all athletes do, and some of them might, see this, whether or not it's in 2020, year of the pandemic, or whether that's in 2025 and they're scrolling through Facebook 2.0 and they're on Facebook 5.0 at that point. What do you feel like you actually took away from that experience versus your athletic experience? And do you feel like you were able to gain something in that leadership experience that you weren't able to gain as an athlete, being a leader on your team, being a leader in your sport, by being a leader outside of your team?
Of course. I always, in my head growing up, I always felt to be a leader, you got to lead by example. So for track and sports-wise, it's more easier to be a leader because all you have to do is be excellent at your task or your skill. If I'm a basketball player,
you got to run real fast. You got to run real fast.
Yeah, so pretty much that's how people see it, as in if I'm gonna be a leader on the track team, I got to be the Olympic gold medalist or the all-national. And it's not always like that. It's not always the best person is always the leader. And I noticed that I took that and I actually learned from people off campus how to be a leader without actually being athletic. I learned from people like Deshae how to, like, she was a leader of BSU. and president of VSU, and I learned how she would organize meetings or certain discussions that we would have in the multicultural center room, just discussions that we would start up just to kind of see how people was feeling mentally, just ask questions about how class was going. And I took that stuff and I used it not only on my athletic side, but my day-to-day life. And it helped because the leadership I was learning from athletics was only just, oh, if they don't know how to do it, just do it, show them how to do it, and they'll learn. But actually, on campus, being in classroom settings like that and being a leader, it was more of teaching people and talking with them and building a relationship. So I used that with my track, and I built a relationship with everybody on my team. After I built a relationship with my teammates, I started building a relationship with other teams of different sports, basketball, track, football, soccer. It wasn't an athlete or a team that I couldn't go and associate with and have fun with and hang out with and be by myself. And they wouldn't ask, like, what the rest of your team? Or it was like I was a part of the team. For 1 minute, people thought I was a part of the female soccer team. And I'd never played soccer a day in my life, but I built a relationship.
You must have had longer hair. You must have had longer hair.
I did have dreads at that time. I had dreads. But
okay. That explains all of it. Of it.
When I came in, that was the first year they had a female soccer team. So they were new and I was new. So I was like, this is their first time being here. And they had some that was freshman, some sophomore and junior, but we all was new to the environment. So we kind of built a relationship then, and I would hang out with them. And as time grew, we kept that same relationship, and people was like, I would tell people, yeah, I'm on the soccer team. I was like, no. I was like, ask them. And the soccer players would tell you. They was like, yeah, he's on the soccer team. Everybody believed it. But it was just that I used both to kind of manage. I let one take over to the other side. And it really helped. It built great relationships and made me great opportunities.
That's awesome, man. So what I'm hearing from you is, you almost utilize your experience outside of the sport as part of the flywheel to help influence, you being effective, with leadership even in your sport, and be able to kind of rally around guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, I guess, and kind of maybe even try to bring them in. And then also, vice versa, being the things that you would do in the sport, could kind of even give you credibility and be able to have maybe talking points and, maybe different opportunities that maybe students that were non-athletes didn't have, being in those other spaces that you would go in and lead, and, the whole hood love you, that type of thing, man. So that makes sense. Okay. That's cool, man. That's cool. That I feel like that's definitely special, man. And it's not necessarily normal. Not necessarily normal. That's cool, man.
So I know it was a little different back when you graduated compared to now. There's a lot of things that y'all probably didn't have that we had. How do you think that affected you in the long run? Like, did it make you tougher? Do you think it helped? Did you think it harmed you? Like such things as like the training table now, we eat dinner. This marvelous state of the art from facilities, the state of the art facilities we have, or just the extra help from academics or extra coaches. As time changed and things evolutionized, how do you think they kind of played a part in me versus like you in a time space difference?
Yeah, for sure, man. So your 100, 200, and 400 meter time is probably faster than mine, only because of these new enhancements. That's probably why. Because if I had these enhancements, my 100 would be, I'd be running a 10.3.
Okay.
My 200 will be at 24 seconds flat. My 400 would be, I was slow on the 400. My 400 would be probably a 50 flat.
A 50, okay, all right. You probably can make my high school team.
Terrible. I'm gonna make your high school team. That's jokes, man. That's jokes. No, so to your point, man, I think that first off, I think we got to thank the alumni for one, donating.
Yeah.
To even have even have these facilities. And I don't want to start naming folks. I know names, but I don't want to name folks and miss somebody. But there are people that, have done a lot of great things for Kansas State that are alum, and that's the folks that are giving the $50. That's the folks that, you know, are writing the $5 million checks, the $10 million checks, and I think that, you know, they're able to do that because of the work that the folks in the Alumni Association do day in, day out. They're able to do that because of, you know, what, you know, you got folks like Jessica Elmore, you know, going out and she's, you know, traveling the world in, you know, New Zealand or Australia or, you know, different parts of maybe the Europe or something, you know, touching alumni and reminding them about the experience that they had at K-State and how it's impacted them in positive ways and it's really changed their life. And, you know, I think that, you know, once you're able to get a group like that to donate to but not just donate their time, but, you know, Dr. Gordon used to talk about donating your time, your talent, and your treasure. And so that's one of the things that I see. And so I think people have donated their time, their talent, and treasure before me. And that helped me to even get to the place I was. That helped me be in Bramlage Coliseum versus Ian Ahern. That helped me, you know, in my teammates, right? And I think that all it is continuing to pay it forward. So the things that you were able to do, there's going to be some things that don't necessarily materialize until maybe 2021, 2022, 2023. And in some ways that sucks for you because you don't get to experience it. You think your training table is cool. Like what happens, you know, when they got drones delivering their training table, that steak and potatoes and all that stuff. Yeah. Like you could be like, oh my gosh, I can't remember the days I can't believe the days I used to actually have to go to training table and we had to walk there. And like, that's gonna be crazy. They're gonna be like, oh my gosh, they had to walk. Like I can't believe my drone was late. Like they got different problems. Like the drone was late. So yeah. I say all that to say, I mean, to answer your question, it's just a continuous will, man. And I mean, being African American, you know that like there are things that our ancestors did that they and our parents and our grandparents did that they didn't necessarily get the benefit from, but they paid it forward. And there were folks before them that did the same thing. And so I look at it the same way. You know, there was somebody before me and I was before you and you're before somebody else. You know, both being an African American in the space. But then also, you know, talking about, you know, different things that people were able to get in the idea of, you know, their new practice facilities, new things. Like you want a place to get better after you leave. Like you want to go back to a better place. And I think that's one thing, that's a hallmark of how I feel about K-State. And I think is attributed to the leadership, people being able to raise money and people being able to reach out. And you got things like, again, you know, the Aaron Fund on the athletic side. And, you know, you got initiatives like the Multicultural Alumni Council that, you know, I was fortunate enough under Jessica Elmore's leadership to help chair for a series of 2 years and be a part of that as well. And people taking active stances in leadership. You think about all the racial injustices and the things that have happened, and it's caused people to take a stance nationally at companies, at schools. Well, I can tell you, I mean, back 6, 7, 8 years ago, you know, Jessica Elmore and I were having a conversation about a multicultural alumni council because that was needed. And so some of these things that, you know, are going on that are tragedies that people are being very reactive. You know, I think K-State, let's be frank, K-State has a long way to go in a lot of areas. And I think that, you know, the student athletes taking a stand the way that they did on the football team and some of the other athletes throughout the country, and even K-State, I think that is very meaningful and is very telling. But at the same time, I will say, even though K-State does have a long way to go, and K-State is not out of the doghouse, because there's a lot of things that still need to happen, and there's institutional and structural things that need to change as it relates to K-State. But I will tell you that I feel as though, you know, they have been proactive in some of these areas, in some of these spaces. I mean, I'm curious on the way that you see it.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. I feel like things can be better, but things are better than what they were. I think they have a long way to go.
From when you first started, you're saying things are better?
Yes, things are a lot better from my freshman year.
And you're from the standpoint of you being a black man in a predominantly white institution?
Yes. My freshman year compared to my senior year is a lot different. I would say myself. based off the fact that I've seen them take initiative and speak out. Even though they did speak out, some things would change, but I don't feel like everything was changed. It's like sometimes they would say something and it wasn't 100% backed up. And I feel like I see where it was going, but it's not a something that happens in a second, a flash of a second, and it takes time. Like you say, we paved the way for the future. So I feel like some of the stuff they're taking now, the future, like future students of K-State, students of color will benefit from the stand-ups, the talks, and the meetings we have, and the walks and the protests that we're doing now or doing when I was still in school. I think that would benefit them. I just think they should keep going and not only do that when an incident or something happens, but just it'd be a natural thing to happen on certain occasions just normally, to let them know that they're behind their students and they're supporting them, and not wait until actually an accident or something happens. I feel that's something that kind of sit with me sideways, to wait until something happens to kind of support. I feel like it should be something that's known, period. Day-to-day basis, we should be able to support each other and do those things.
I would agree, man. I would agree. Well, I'll tell you, kudos to the students on campus. We definitely hear loud and clear some of the things that they've been able to do. The different classes at BSU, everybody kind of carries a flag, and it's a relay race of sorts, man. It's a relay race of sorts, and people carry a flag, and people figure out ways to lead. Not everybody is protesting. Not everybody is, demanding the meetings with the president. Not everybody is, meeting with alum. But people, I think, are able to kind of figure out the ways in which they can contribute, and they can contribute to running this relay race for racial and civil justice rights, et cetera, in these spaces. And again, I think kudos to you, kudos to the Multicultural Alumni Council at K-State, what they're doing, in the faces that are in these spaces, to help make changes, because I think it's very important. I don't even know this is the topic we're supposed to be talking about, but I think there's no way we can get on this call and not talk about this, man. So I think that's major. That's major. And I think for the folks that are listening, I think everybody should be thinking about what can they do, and on a daily basis. It should be a perpetual thing on a daily basis for the alum, especially the current faculty, administration. What can they do on a daily basis to affect change? Is that inviting one more person to the meeting that wasn't initially supposed to be in the meeting? Is that opening the recruiting pool for tenured professorships? Is that opening that recruiting pool to schools outside of the normal schools? Is it updating the coaching selection? Is it it takes people to be proactive and to be intentional to make these changes. This is what happens when you have these. This is what happens when you have these Zoom calls, man. You get phone calls, and anyway, sorry about that. Anyway, but go ahead though.
Yeah. To kind of fast forward to today's time and your career you're doing now, what aspects of college do you think actually, not say pave the way, but actually help you now to be the person you are in your career?
Yeah, I'll probably catch a lot of heat for this, but this is just me being as honest as I can. I probably learned, over half of what I learned at K-State, like actually playing my sport. Like that's just the reality. Just the idea of the main takeaway is the teamwork, understanding what it means to operate under pressure, understanding what it means to lead through hardship, and having a season that's not going the way that it needs to go. Like being able to be vocal, speech, communication, motivating yourself, motivating teammates, people, those type of things. And so I don't think I can take away at all from my experience being a student athlete, because that was huge for me. But I think my experience was supplemented in a lot of ways because I was able to branch out and have opportunities to lead in other areas. And I think that, I've been asked to take on a recruiting role, for my company that I do now. And I've been able to do that in the past. And I'll tell you, I pull a lot of knowledge and I pull a lot of confidence in certain rooms from being a part of the athletic director search committee and understanding what that is like, and seeing somebody like Amy Button-Renz run a flawless process. I didn't feel like waking up at 6:30 to make a 7 a.m. meeting, for those things. But the reality was, not every student athlete has those opportunities, and I just wanted to make sure that I took away from it what I could, and they trusted me to do those things. But the idea was, being able to learn from the classroom, being able to learn from my sport, and being able to learn kind of outside of my sport. And I can't speak enough about the College of Business, but the reality is, so much of it was, so much you can learn a lot of these things through a lot of various means. But there's only so many times you could be deviate, to your point, going into BSU during a very critical time and taking a leadership position. You can't read that in a book.
Yeah.
If Bob Huggins left K-State and left us, to try to figure things out. We had the leadership of a first-year coach in Frank Martin, who's a future Hall of Famer. But the reality is, nobody knew what was going on at that point. And how do you help this new class come in and what's going on, they don't. And it's stuff like that my company, ConocoPhillips, ended up splitting into, and I'm with one of the companies and not the other. I can pull from that experience of, hey, I've been here before, kind of heard some unexpected news and had to figure out how to make it work. And so that's some of the things that I think about where, some of being a student athlete is so transferable in terms of skill set and in terms of, kind of just demeanor and to be successful. That's how I feel.
Cool. So. I like that. That's what I'm trying to get to that point now. As I just started my career job. Well, not career job, but started actually working an adult job, put it like that.
Yeah.
And working towards my career. So now I'm using things from college, athletics, or just being on campus to kind of make the day go by better or just do a better job at work. So
yeah,
I can see
that's major, man. That's major. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what it's about, man. That's kind of what it's about. I mean, the reality is right now, the things you learn in the classroom, though impactful, though needed, though to help you be credentialed, just being frank, they're table stakes. They're table stakes. They're table stakes to get you in there, but they're not the types of things like I've never heard anybody say, oh man, thank God for this knowledge, because this knowledge was able to keep me at the top. Like it's the intangibles, and that's what you learn in sports. It's the intangibles. That's what you learn with off-campus leadership, the intangibles. And you learn some of those things in the classroom. But the classroom, a lot of it, especially on the undergraduate level, a lot of it is knowledge base and how to do something. Maybe sometimes why to do something or what is something. But it's kind of getting into the how and more so getting into the why. And sometimes more importantly, why not? So that'll be it for another topic though.
Yeah. So if you can go back and tell as the younger you or just younger people in general that's entering college, brand new to the system, trying to find themselves and learn themselves, what would you tell them? Or what would you tell yourself? Or what would you tell me just to be beneficial to help them, strive for greatness?
Yeah, for sure. And are you saying you as in you now, or are you saying you as in you're going into your freshman year at K-State?
Going into my freshman year, brand new students in college from big cities, little cities. Just what would you tell them? How would you describe the experience, or how would you give them like kind of a pep talk, or what would you tell the younger you coming in freshman year at K-State?
Yeah. First thing I would tell the younger me would be, make sure you know how to cut your hair or find a really dope barber, because it's tough out there. And obviously, that's important. I actually got really good. I got really good. I used to cut, teammates used to cut other teammates' hair. I used to cut my my own hair all the time. I mean, that seems like something so basic, but that's part of the culture, man. But I say that very serious and also jokingly, but like I would say, hey man, make sure you find a barber or learn how to cut your own hair. But I would say probably more specifically, and it's probably more helpful, I would say that, and I know this is very much so overused, but have a plan and know that it's okay if you deviate from your plan. That's, I think, critical, especially for somebody entering. Like, because you want to go through the thought process of understanding what do you want to do and why is it that you want to do that. And that may change, and that may be something that you don't end up doing, but you've at least thought through it. And, you know, that allows you to pivot, that allows you to be flexible, and that allows you to kind of like have a North Star, that allows you to have a North Star to go towards something. But then also just being able to know that the second part of that is just being flexible with it, knowing that, you know, likely it's not going to happen the way in which you wanted. You know, I have a really good friend who, you know, she constantly talks about how she's going to write a book one day. And, you know, one of the titles of one of the chapters was, you know, this is not how it was planned, you know, and I think that that's a very thing that, you know, if you can take that with you every day, knowing that your future self is going to realize that this wasn't how this was planned, I think that's going to help you find a little bit more peace in your day to day. I would tell that to a freshman coming in. What about you? What about you? And I know we're running up on time, man. So maybe we do this, you, and then maybe one last kind of final takeaway.
Yeah, I will say the exact same thing, pretty much.
Not the exact same thing. Come on, man.
Not the exact thing. I'm gonna elaborate a little different. Like, not, you know, but the same. We get into the same thing. Like you said, that initial plan, it might not go as seemed. I came in thinking I was gonna make it to the Olympics. That was my goal. Yeah. Anybody from my hometown will tell you, oh, he's gonna be an Olympic runner. We're seeing him on TV one day running track. As I got there and I ran and I seen what it takes to be a professional athlete, it did not scare me, but I knew I wouldn't be initially happy being a professional athlete. And I wanted to be happy in life and whatever career choice I chose. So I deviated a little bit and I went from a kinesiology major to a criminology major. And I'm saying that it's not always about what you want, but it's what you get. I took something better out of everything that happened. I ended up my junior year signing over my scholarship and becoming a manager for the team. I still traveled. I still came to practice. So I was still in the environment, and I was actually happier at that point because I lost my passion for track, but I still love being around. I just didn't have the passion to run, but I still had the passion for it. So when I got that opportunity, it shocked me because, like I said, I thought I was going to be an Olympic runner. I thought I was going to run track until I couldn't anymore. But when I seen I was able to help and be that vocal leader or that physical leader, managing and just being at practice and not having to run, but showing them, hey, you slipping here. Like, hey, try to do this here, or let's work at the practice. Let's do some abs. I was still there, and it helped me in the long run. I still got my degree. I still got the same memories. I still had full scholarship, but I didn't get it this way I thought I had it. And it shocked me. But I think I got a better understanding of life because of that.
That's real.
I think it bettered me. So
that's real. That's real. Well, and this is one thing I think about in your story, because a lot of times athletes kind of come in and they have the idea that, hey, I want to be a pro athlete. And I think that I am not going to knock the athlete that does that, because you think about it, Devie, having that single track tunnel vision mindset is what helped you be one of the best in middle school. What helped you probably be the best in your town, in your city, maybe one of the best in the state, right? In middle school, all through high school, you were but you had a single track mentality of like, you're going to focus and you're going to grind. You are going to focus and you're going to get to the next level, which from middle school is you're going to get to high school and you're definitely going to make the high school team. And from high school, you're going to get definitely going D1, which you did. And, you know, I'm not one of those people that knocks the people that come in thinking that, hey, you know, you shouldn't have ambitions to go to the league. because I think that it's tough to turn that off. But I think that, where K-State comes in, they had, stuff like the Career Cat Luncheon that Bill Snyder put together, where I don't know if they still had it when you were there, but and Bill Snyder put together, and there were other folks that had really big impacts to that, were helping people interview and helping people prepare for jobs and helping people do other things. And so I think that that's super important for people to have different views of looking at things, but at the same time, you got to make sure, and I think that's a highlight of your story, Devie, is that you didn't let the sport use you. You used the sport. And that's what so many people, don't necessarily think about all the time, because they go in and get used up by the sport. And then they didn't get out at the end of it, all that they could have gotten out of it. And some of that, so much of that is through the sport. But in terms of getting other things out of it are things like what you're talking about, Devie, and kind of what I'm talking about, this idea of making sure that you're able to kind of broaden that leadership. You're able to broaden your perspective. You're able to broaden, how you see the world outside of sports. And I think that's something that we share together, this idea that through leadership at K-State, outside of our sport, we were to take advantage of, what we could get out of the game and what we could give to the game and what we can give to people around us. And that is going to, be with us for a long time, way after K-State.
Yeah. Great. So I think we did a good job.
I think that's time. Just
to kind of wrap up the conversation, what big takeaways just from this conversation alone do you think that audience would get, or that we was trying to point out, so they can go back and kind of see where we was going at, and see the whole topic, or the whole reason of doing this interview?
I think I want to say that I want to list out the takeaways, but I think it's going to be different for everybody. For some people, they're going to, be drawn to the comments about, social justices and things that they need to do on campus, and that ways they can be impacted. But for other folks, it's going to be seeing, Devie, yourself and myself, and saying, oh, wow, like these are these guys, and they're doing stuff other than sports outside. And this is, these are ways that prepared them to lead outside of their sport by having leadership on campus in other areas. And there's going to be some people that are like, you know what? They're going to be delivering drones. Drones are going to be delivering training table in a couple years. And like, I need to go to K-State. Like, I mean, who knows? There's going to be different takeaways. But I think the far and away, the message though is, being a student athlete at K-State is very much a nuanced experience. That's the best way I can say it. And if you're going to be an athlete, if you're a current athlete, make sure that you're taking away what you want to take away from it. Have a plan. And if you're not, whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that you're grinding and figuring out what that plan is and how you can, take away what you need to take away from it. Like, get what you came for. Like, eat, like, grind, don't go home hungry, and make sure that, you don't allow systems to use you. You utilize systems for the benefit of yourself, but then also at the same time, Devie, to your point, you give back. You give back to the community. You give back to your school. You give back to the people that have helped you, and you give back to the future generation, and you pass that baton, and you take that baton. So you got to be on the ladder with a hand reaching up and a hand reaching back the whole time. No matter if you're just starting your career, or if you're a person that's been grinding, and you got all the commas at the end of your net worth, and in your bank account and all that stuff, as the poet Future talks about in one of his songs. But various things though that you want to think about.
Oh, I'd like to wrap it up, and last thing but not least, go Cats.
Go Cats. Yeah, well, thank you so much. Email.
Right. Email.